helpful in that drawing class.
Okay. All right. So hope that doesn't fall out. Okay, we're gonna do a watercolor, and this is where I want you to practice mixing colors. You can see that my palette is not clean, and that's the joy of this product is if you allow it to dry here, you can just well, I didn't have a clean brush. That's not good. You can just reconstitute the watercolor by adding water to it and use it again. So you're not wasting anything. If you're a neat freak and can't stand that, and then you can clean up your palette at the end of every session, and then your palette will be cleaned the next week or next day whenever you use it. But I've used the same paper towel today. I haven't gone through one yet. And if you've already saturated a paper towel, you're probably squeezing too much. I don't know that anyone has yet, but I'm going to mix a light green. So if I'm going to mix a light green, I'm going to mix yellow and green. So I'm going to go to one of my yellows. I'm going to load it up pretty good, and then I'm going to go to a spot and I'm squeezing a little bit to get some of it out. Or you can drag your brush on the edge and let it fall in. As you first use your palette, it'll probably bead up. It doesn't usually lay out as nice as this. And then I go to my green, and then I go directly into that yellow. So if I want it darker, then I'll go back and add more green, but then I already have something mixed, okay? So I want the outside of my watermelon, if I'm looking at a watermelon, the outside is, the lightest color is usually a light green. So this is where I'm going to draw with my paint. If you're not comfortable drawing with paint, then you can draw with pencil first. But I'm going to load my brush with the lightest color, and I'm going to draw an oval, and then I'm going to fill it in. Okay, just keep watching because I'm going to do the wet part. But this is starting with wet paint, not starting with water. So I started with wet paint. Now I'm going to go to a dark green. I'm barely touching. Remember how we were controlling that brush earlier? Barely touching, kind of bouncing along. And actually my background's the background of the watermelon's a little pale.
It's not quite right.
It's not quite, the color's like still not fully ripe. Okay, so I'll do another one. But do you see how just by changing the direction of those lines, I'm creating the bend of the watermelon. I can come back and make some of these a little darker, fill it in. But that's.
And you're painting on dry paper?
I'm painting on wet.
On
No,
paper.
The oval's
the oval was wet.
Gotcha.
But okay, so I'm going to make one a little darker because that looks kind of sick. So I'm going to now this
That's
one's
a honeydew.
this one just spit. This one is a little too dark. But see, I have to squeeze because again, if it's not wet, see how wet that is? You want it wet. It's got a little nudge in it. Then you go for a darker green.
You didn't wet the paper first, though, for your
No,
watermelon?
no.
Oh, I thought she did.
No.
I wet it with the paint. This is doing wet on wet starting with paint. So just by kind of bouncing around, you don't have hard lines. All of them should be soft lines because you have a wet surface you're painting on. So it's a little warped, little bumpy watermelon.
Yeah.
All right, so now y'all try. Yeah, my second one looks a little better. The first
Yeah.
one's a little
The first one is
anemic. So the second one, I just started with the light green in your palette, and I just went straight out of that paint and didn't even mix, so that might be easier.
And then you use the dark green from the
And then I used a dark green while it was still wet. You gotta work fast to get it to bleed. It's okay to do bigger than that, Susan.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
And then
Yeah, squeeze, get some water in there. There you go.
Well, this is just way too green looking. Is that the right color?
Either of your dark greens, that was a dark green, that should be a dark green also.
Okay, permanent, I got
And then when you have your little key, of course this helps,
you. Yeah,
but it's hard to see when it gets.
I know, I had to get my
Like what?
glasses on. Yeah, that's too green. All right, I'm gonna try this again.
Okay.
I'll try it again bigger now.
what a great way to spend an afternoon.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
Way more fun than cleaning the house.
Oh, sure is.
It'll rain another day and that's the job for that day.
Just let it bleed. It's okay.
Mine looks like little stars.
You want it to, well, it might not be wet enough.
Or is it too wet? See, why is it bursting out like that?
Well, because it is wet, so just connect some of them.
Oh.
But just kind of bounce along so that it's not totally, and then some of them squeeze a little bit more, so it's just buried. So it's not all the same thickness. I mean, they're, yeah. Of course, we had one to look at. It's always good to have a reference to look at,
Yes, ma'am.
and I didn't really have one. I had it somewhere, but I couldn't put my hands on it. See if I can locate my better watermelon.
So when you did the lines and it was wet, you kind of skipped along.
A little bit, yeah.
A little tiny bit? Okay.
Oh, but I like my snowman. Isn't he cute?
Oh,
Wait,
yeah.
He needs to be a Christmas.
We could work on him.
Mm-hmm.
He looks hard.
Here's another one.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, I was.
Use your pen for the outlines?
Uh-huh.
The 005?
Most of that's probably 005. It's pretty small. And leaves. Anyway.
Bouquet of flowers. Are we gonna do that?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Cupcakes.
Gosh, look at that wrapper.
It's a cupcake.
Oh, man. What impression.
They're beautiful.
Ours won't look like that, though. Mine won't.
Oh, you won't. It's easier than you think. Yeah, we're gonna do one. Okay. Now, while you've got the watermelon going, I'm gonna just show you a slice of watermelon. So it's similar to what we did earlier in controlling the blur of the water. Remember how we started with the hard edge and then we added water and blurred it out a little bit? So here's just, I'm just gonna make a larger piece. So I'm gonna start with the dark green this time. And I'm just gonna do, whoops, see how dry that was? How it's, let me see. I don't think it's gonna let me zoom in. Nope, okay. If you don't have enough water in your brush, it's gonna be like the dry brush effect, like this. That is not enough water. And sometimes you want that effect. If you just want to use the roughness of the paper to create texture like on a fence or a house or something, or dirt on the road, you don't add water, you don't make your paint fluid. So there's times when you want that. So since I did that, you can put dry brush effect. So, but for my watermelon, I want that paint to flow. So I'm gonna add more water. Might have to squeeze a little bit because that's a really dark green. Yeah. Okay, then I'm gonna come.
Green deep.
It is the dark green. Yeah, it kind of looks black on there. I'm just adding water.
It started with dry, didn't
It was
it?
fairly
Dry
dry.
and wet.
So I started.
Wet and wet.
I started with dry paper to put that line, and I came back with water so that it bleeds out a little bit. Ooh, that does look black. It's actually, I should have picked up the lighter green.
The very light green of the three?
That was the darkest of the green that's on the palette.
You're going to the middle green now, or the?
I just went to water and let it bleed out a little bit. And then to get a pink, if you're on this palette that I have and you want a pink, it's the 4th red over plus white. So which of those two is the lightest one?
Fourth red, what is it called?
I have no idea. I don't have names on mine.
Quinacridone rose.
All right, so I want pink. I don't want dark. So I'm going to go to my white first. Anytime you want to lighten a color, just put white on your palette first. And to me, the prettiest pink is made from that 4th red. See, my palette, I don't know how many years old it is, but it doesn't have names. So now I have a nice pink. So I'm going to make my watermelon. So I'm going to paint. Ooh, man, my brush is not flowing very good. Whoops. I'm going to paint the outside edges and fill in with fluid so that it keeps it. See, now look, if you do this, if you trace it like this, here's a bite out of it, and if you don't fill that in quick, then you're going to have that outside edge line. So if you want to outline it first, that's fine, but you better paint quick and fill it in.
But we're to mix the white and the 3rd red?
If you want a pink. And I just took a chunk out, so somebody took a bite. And what I'll do is I'll let that dry, and I'll come back with pen and put the seeds.
And put what?
The seeds.
Oh, okay.
Unless yours is water, seedless. That's
Yeah.
preference, that I have.
I thought we were doing a different kind of slice, so I made this thing really big.
Oh, it can be whatever size of slice you have. It is just a matter of learning how to.
Carrie, did you
Now
you didn't add, you just.
I wipe that off. Now add water to blur that edge out. You can add a lighter green if you want, but I just blurred it.
Okay.
But so much of what I do with this is once I know when we start painting scenes and things, you'll know, well, do I want a soft edge or a hard edge? And if it's hard edge, then you're not going to use a lot of water. You're not going to have the paper won't be wet. Is this yours? I found it under your table yesterday.
It sure is.
So-
Thank you.
I just want to make sure.
Thank you, dear.
You're welcome.
Or Tuesday, you mean.
Yeah. Okay.
That's one of my favorite brushes, too. Thank you.
I'm glad I found it. It could have gone up under the stove. All right, so we need to paint a couple of things real quick. Because we talked a lot today, but I want you to play with your materials and see how they work. I will show you this because we're videoing. That layering, if I want to layer textures, I'm going to start with the solid. If I'm doing wood, I'm going to start with the lightest color that I see. Then I come back and add another color. Or it could be the same color, but when you add it, it's just darker. And then I come back and add more. And then I come back and add more. Same with bricks or rocks. I start all of them with the base color of the lightest color. Then I add a little bit of definition. And then the very last one, I add other colors and little bits of shadow.
You picked other colors up at that.
Uh-huh.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
Right, but this is if I'm going to take the time. I don't normally do that when I journal because I'm not doing multiple layers. I'm going to get what I can, however I can do it as quick as possible. As quick as possible, I'm just going to flip the page here. Well, I guess I'm on the back right now. So if I was, yeah, but we'll come back to that later. I'm going to come back to that later. I want to show you the cupcake. A cupcake is layering on the cup part. So what I want you to do is get your pencil. Now I'm going to probably do mine a little darker just so that you can see it. Just do a slight smile down at the bottom. That's the base of your cupcake. You don't want it to be, can y'all see that at all?
What did you use?
Let me use a permanent pen. I would use a pencil, but I'm going to, where is it? Oh, I had it out a minute ago. There is a type of pen. There are some pens that you can draw with first and then paint. Where is it? And it won't bleed. I know where that one is. I'm just going to get it. I used it in my drawing class. Some of the people who do the urban sketching, who are just go, a lot of town, downtown kind of stuff. The Uniball EYE is one of their favorite pens to use. It flows pretty well, and it's permanent.
Could you show that wrapper one more second? I'm sorry.
Uniball EYE, and they're really pretty reasonable, about $2 a piece. I guess you could buy one of those today too if you wanted. I have enough. But I'll just show you real quick.
I just should have waited for it.
Now that
Okay, but let me just show you real quick what it does because we're running out of time. And okay, I'm going to just draw it real quick. Well, actually, I want to zigzag like this. This is really a bad, not the greatest illustration, but if I was doing just a quick watercolor sketch, I mean, that might be enough just to do my sketch. I'm going to come in with red, save.
So it's waterproof ink.
It's waterproof ink.
But could you do it with a pencil?
Yes, I would recommend that. Where'd my paper towel? It fell on the floor. All right, so I'm gonna save the white of the reflection of the cherry just a little bit to indicate light. But I'm going to create some kind of base color on this cupcake. So I want my cupcake, the base color, to be yellow. So I'm just going to flat out paint that. That's kind of how I would do anything that's layered. I'm just going to leave that, let it dry, and then I'm going to go back to another part of the painting I'm not working on. So I did the cherry, then I went down here. Now I'm going to come up and I can work on the sandy part of the, because it's very similar to the color I used. I'm putting in the vanilla cake. While that's wet, I can get a little bit of burnt sienna and throw that in. I'm just layering lightly so that it's a different color. I'm waiting for this to dry. I'm going to just pretend it's, I don't even know what flavor icing.
Cream cheese.
Okay, cream cheese sounds good. All right, so that means this will be kind of white. So I'm just going to create a little bit of shadowing in here with some kind of grayed tone. It's probably too green for that, but you know, you'll get the concept hopefully. So I'm just creating a little bit of color. Maybe a little bit of pink might be reflecting from your cherry. This is very crude, but I want to show you that this can be really fun to do. Now I want some other designs. See, now I can touch this. So since I have a cherry up there, I'm going to incorporate some other designs that incorporate that red. So I'm going to put some circles. And it can be circles, it can be swirls, it can be zigzags, it can be I mean, anything. Smiley faces, it can, you know, your imagination it's all good. So whatever kind of pattern you want, and you can come back with other colors. Now, again, you have to remember watercolors are transparent, so I'm putting this on top of a yellowish surface. So my blue might have a tendency to look a little green, and the red's not going to be totally vibrant. But for what I'm doing, it doesn't matter. Now on this one, I left the base white, and I did, if you want a clear, solid, you know, beautiful clear colors, you leave the base white, do all your designs. Okay, so it's just a different variation. Now I'm letting this dry a little bit, and while I'm letting that dry, I'm going to come up and paint the stem of my cherry. Maybe come in and add a little bit more texture up under here, because that should have been dry enough, and I can create a little shadow up under there. Oop, maybe a little too much. If you do something too much, you can come back in, maybe lift off a little bit. See how I just kind of use it as a, you don't scrub your paper, but you can lift. You can also dab with a paper towel, just don't scrub. So here I have basically but this looks flat because there's no shading. Anytime you have all of one color, it's all of one value, it's going to read flat. So now I want to get a shadow color. Could be one of my favorite ways to make shadows, and I'll just it's this purple, little bit of the purple, the third blue, which is the darkest blue, and the fourth one over on the bottom, which is the dark brown. So when I put all of those together, to me it makes a more interesting shadow than using gray or black. I hardly ever use the gray or black that's on this. So
say it again, which one?
it's the purple, which is the fifth one over on the top, second row, the dark blue, which is the third one over on the third row, or 3-3, what I would call it, like if you're doing coordinates, and 4-4, which is the fourth one over on the fourth row. It's the dark brown. And if you want your shadow to be more blue, add more blue. If you want it to be more purple, add more purple. But there's enough to make a gray color. You have evidence of all primaries, and to get the brown, you have some red and yellow in that. But that neutralizes it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up here and just do strokes down. Well, that's a little heavy. Probably should have tested my color first. That was a little dark. If it's a little dark, get some of the paint off. Oops, a little dark, wipe it off. I feel like my bifocals are not quite in focus. And then I want one side, if this side of the cherry is darker than the other, so I'm going to make this side of the cupcakes a little darker. So you just paint on top of what you've just painted, and then you can cast a shadow over this side. So just by creating just the lines that get lighter as it goes down, gives you the illusion that it's wrinkled.
How much paint do you have on that brush? Because I always end up putting too much of that.
Okay, if you have too much, then I always have a test sheet. That's a good point. If you have a test sheet and you want it, like when I first did that first line, just a scrap sheet of paper, so that when you're testing a color, you know how dark it is. Because if you test it over here and go, ooh, that's too dark, you know, just take some of the paint off your brush, add a little water, and it, you know, test it again. But that's a great way to double check what you're doing. But anyway, I'm going to look at my notes and see if we got far enough. Watermelon, oh, bouquet of flowers, ocean example. Oh, we didn't do that. I never get to all of it. I always put more than we do. Okay, so, but y'all see how, you know, that really is not complicated, but have fun with creating whatever design you have. All this was a light yellowy or green wash, and I went over with green designs and then came in with the shadow.
Can you put those 2 cupcakes down so I can take
Can
a
you send
picture?
those images in the text message?
Oh.
Carrie?
Or we
Yeah,
can take a
that would be
picture of it?
Yeah, we can
so
do
we
that.
can-
You mean set them here?
Yeah,
Okay,
just so we can practice when I get home, since we're about out of time.
yeah. That's
But
it.
you can
That looks like
send
a
them
hot
to
mess.
You gonna send them the video?
Yeah,
Not the cupcake pictures?
Can you
I
put
can-
the other snowman up, the guy that,
oh yeah, he was so
snowman
cute.
with the rocks on his belly? Yeah.
And he
he's
cute.
very cute.
Maybe after class you can lay them on the table and we can take some pictures for practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be better than taking them from the TV.
Do you have a bouquet of flower picture sample?
Mm-hmm. And I can do that really quick.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Mm.
That'll be a homework.
Yep.
Oh,
Y'all will have lots of homework. Your homework is to fill your book.
Doesn't mean you don't have homework.
Let's see. No, that's not what, okay, that's not what I want.
Oh God, those water drops.
Yeah, we'll do water drops another day.
This will
Okay,
be part
good.
of my daily painting. So I have to otherwise go home. And
It could be.
Yeah.
Sure.
She said no matter how small it counts.
It does.
One watermelon.
It
No
could.
judgment, no judgment.
It doesn't matter. Okay, so let me just do a real quick watercolor for the. Oh, here's the opening. I skipped a page. How did I do that? I don't know. Okay, so a very quick bouquet of flowers. I'm going to start wet on wet. So what do I do if I want wet on wet?
Wet the paper.
I wet the paper. So I'm going to do, oh, yeah. So I'm just going to wet pretty much the whole sheet. And I always leave kind of a suggested border. And even though this is shiny now, this paper absorbs really fast. So I still want to work fast. So I want to grab some yellows. So I'm just going to lay in a little bit of yellows. I am not worried about what in the world kind of flower this is right now. And I know I'm going to have a vase down here. The vase is going to reflect some of the color that's up above. So, okay, so now I'm going to have some pinks. I'm going to throw in some pinks in there. You know, you can have heavy, thicker blobs. This is very abstract-like. And I know, again, if I have my vase down here, I'm going to have some of that color in there too. I'm going to come back with something else in between. You know, we'll do a lot of more specific floral stuff. Well, hey, Penny. So you want some things going up, going down. I'm going to throw some green in there. I don't want it totally taking over where the flowers are. Whoops. Help if I hold on to my brush. Oh, that's a little too garish. So I don't like it's too bright, so I'll come back and lift it up with some water. Or dab it. Okay, so.
That's actually very sweet.
I do a lot of these for little thank you notes. But you'll come back with pen, and that helps finish it off. But it's just it's a very quick, subtle laying in a color. Y'all want to try that real quick, and then I'll let mine dry, and I'll show you the pen, and then we'll call it a day.
Sure. Wet paper.
Also, what I would recommend, if you have a moment when you're through with that,